Okay, good morning. My name is Guire. I am the 2017 Chair of the Municipal Pension Board of Trustees. Welcome to the 16th Annual General Meeting of the Municipal Pension Plan. Today we're going to share with you information about the 2016 financial highlights, give you a tour of the members' website, and hear about planned investments from our CEO of BCIMC. There's also going to be a Q&A session at the close of the day, which will give you a chance to ask us some questions. My first and perhaps the most important message to you is that the plan continues to be viable, sustainable, and beneficial to members, employers, and the province as a whole. We trustees are committed to proactively govern the plan to make sure the plan remains valuable and sustainable for the years to come. Copies of the 2016 annual report are available on the plan website. If you open your AGM package, you will see 3 forms. There's a question form for the Q&A session. Use this form if you have a question, but you don't want to go to a mic to speak. Just fill it in and flag down one of the staff people, and they'll bring it up to the front of the stage. You can use the personal pension question form to ask a private question related to your pension. You would be contacted after the AGM, so please make sure your information is written clearly and submitted through the feedback boxes. There's also a survey request form. That is the one we ask everybody to fill out. We will email you a survey link asking about your experience today. The survey is important for us in planning future events, so please take the time to complete your feedback. If you're a Twitter user, we invite you to join us on our tweet at MyBCMPP. Representatives from our service providers are here today. Representing the BC Pension Corporation is Aaron Walker-Duncan. He's the Vice President of Board Services. The Pension Corporation provides administrative services on behalf of the Municipal Pension Plan. They provide services to members and employers, as well as they handle the plan administrative work, not at least of which is delivering over $1.5 billion to more than 89,000 retirees and beneficiaries last year. The British Columbia Investment Management Corporation, or BCIMC, invests the plan's assets. The Board of Trustees provide investment directions, and BCIMC handles the day-to-day activities involved in managing those investments. Representing BCIMC today is CEO Gordon Fyfe. We also welcome Michelle Osterman, Rob Field, and Chelsea Kittleson. Sean Hatch provides legal advice to the Board of Trustees. Eckler Limited provides actuarial valuations on the plan. Our plan actuary is Richard Boder. Pacific Blue Cross administers extended health and dental benefit plans available to retired plan members. Monique Klein and other PBC staff are here today, and PBC has a booth in the lobby, so please stop by to visit them there. Aon Hewitt is the plan investment advisor, and KPMG is the plan's external auditor. Judy Payne is the executive director of the Municipal Pension Plan, and joining her is Irene Shamhart, the board secretary. So with that, let's get started. Let's look at today's agenda. Up next is Vice Chair Hilary Brown, who will provide an overview of the plan's financial highlights from this past year. Then Gordon Fyfe from BCIMC will provide insight on the plan's investments. Following that, Corina de Guire, the Pension Corporation's Director of Plan and Members Communications, will give a tour of the new members website that was launched this spring. I'll be back with a brief look at what's ahead for the plan, and then the day will conclude with a question and answer period. Microphones will be set up at the front of each aisle, and mic runners will be available if you'd like to ask a question from your seat. Just to make sure everyone who wants to ask a question during the Q&A session has a chance to speak, we'll follow the same rules as last year. You can ask one question per turn to ensure that we get as many questions as we can. Once everybody has had their chance, those that have an additional questions can come back to the mic a second time. And then once the second round is complete, we'll move to a third round if time permits. So with that, let's get started. First of all, I'd like to introduce to you our 2017 Vice Chair, Hilary Brown. Hilary is the Executive Director of Finance and Strategic Planning for the British Columbia Public School Employers Association. She has held the position as Secretary-Treasurer for Sandwich School District 63, Director of Funding and French Programs for the Ministry of Education, and Accounting Term Professor at Camosun College. She also serves as a trustee for the Public Education Benefit Trust. So please welcome Hilary Brown.
Thank you, Gary, and good morning, everybody. It's so great to see such a full house. Today, we're going to review the financial highlights from the past year and talk about the latest trends in our plan's demographics. As you know, the Board of Trustees' first pension security goal is guaranteeing basic pensions. This goal takes precedence above all others because this is the pension promise the municipal pension plan makes to every member. Once a month, pensions are paid to retirees or possibly to their beneficiaries. In 2016, the plan paid out over $1.9 billion in pensions, benefits, and expenses. It's vital trustees maintain their focus on keeping the plan healthy for the long term. We are very pleased to report that the plan remains healthy and secure. It's fully funded and requires no change to member contributions. In addition to that, our most recent valuation showed a funding ratio of over 100%. These measures indicate that the plan is healthy, secure, and sustainable. But before I go into more detail, let's quickly look how the plan pays pensions. Every month, active plan members and their employers make contributions that flow into the basic account. These contributions are pooled together and then invested. The Board of Trustees provides direction to BCIMC and they manage the plan's investment portfolio. Investment returns then flow back into the basic account. The Board of Trustees' investment policy is documented in the Statement of Investment Policies and Procedures, also known as the SIP. The SIP sets investment guidelines and directions for BCIMC, the plan's investment manager. BCIMC manages the investments, and we, the board, measure their performance against a funding benchmark. For our purpose, it's not just about the absolute return, but the return relative to the benchmark. We measure progress in two ways. Firstly, how have the investments performed compared to the objective benchmark? And secondly, have we met our return assumptions, which allows us to meet the pension promise? So with that in mind, let's take a look at how the plan has performed. Here you'll see an investment overview and the investment results for 2016, as well the 10-year annualized rate of return, which is what I want to draw your attention to. You'll see that the plan is tracking well at 6.5% of return, exceeding the market benchmark of 5.8%. We also keep an eye on the rate of return over the last 5 years. That return is 10.2% over the benchmark of 8.8%. These longer-term results are so important because the board takes a very long view on their investments. We're concerned not only with paying pensions for current retirees, but also making sure the plan is healthy and sustainable in order to pay pensions for all members, including those who've just joined the pension plan. So while the plan's annual return is important, it is the fact that the plan beat the valuation assumption of 6.25% that enables the plan to be sustainable and to meet the basic pension promise. Now let's take a closer look. At the start of 2016, the plan had $43.7 billion. At the end of the year, the plan assets had grown to $46.4. The funds grew by $2.7 billion last year. We gained $1.9 billion from contributions and $2.7 billion from investment returns. But we also paid out $1.9 billion in pensions, benefits, and expenses. So the same amount that came through in contributions went out in paying pensions, benefits, and expenses. The plan saw growth in investment returns only. At this point, we can see just how critical investment income is to the plan. Only about 25 cents of every pension dollar comes from contributions. Approximately 75 cents comes from investment returns. It's investment income that really drives the growth of the basic account. Now, looking at the investments, the plan's long-term asset mix policy continues to reflect an increased focus on real assets such as land, buildings, regulated utilities, and renewable resources. These assets are mostly tangible, physical investments in private markets, ideally suited for the long-term financial objectives of the pension plan. They typically provide reliable cash flows, appreciate in value, and protect against inflation, while avoiding the short-term volatility of the public markets. Now let's look at responsible investing. We believe responsible investing is an integral part of investment. In 2016, we signed 2 principles for responsible investment statements. The first is a statement on environmental, social, and governance, also known as ESG factors, in credit ratings, recognizing that ESG factors are important elements in assessing borrowers' credit worthiness. The second is a global statement on investor obligations and duties, acknowledging that investors must pay attention to long-term investment value drivers, including ESG issues, in their investment processes. We also provided a letter to the Chartered Financial Analyst Society of Toronto encouraging inclusion of ESG elements in program content. For those who are not aware, the CFA Society Toronto is a not-for-profit organization supporting the professional development and advancement of CFA charter holders. Now let's look at who makes up the municipal pension plan. In 2016, there were more than 320,000 members. Of these members, 60% were active, which means they were working and contributing to the plan. 28% are retired, and 12% are inactive. That means that members who are no longer work for a plan employee but have money left in the plan. As well as those statistics, the membership is 73% female and 27% male. Now, if we look at the age groups within the active memberships, we can see that the baby boomers make up a significant portion of the membership. In fact, 41% of active members are now more than 50 years old. So what does all this mean? It means that the plan is changing. There are increasingly fewer active members working to support more retired members. Last year, active membership grew just 2.2%, while the retired membership grew 5.6%. Over the past 5 years, active membership grew 8%, compared to 26% retired members. This means that the ratio is 2.2 active members to every retired one. This ratio has unchanged from last year. So what's happened with the membership growth in 10 years? Here's another way to look at the membership in the plan. In the past 10 years, our active membership has grown 28%, but our retired member base has grown 66%. So that's more than double the growth of new members coming into the plan. Things have been shifting this way for several years now. When we talk about a long-term view of investments and planning, we need to keep trends like this in the front of our mind. The municipal pension plan will soon be marking its 100 years of municipal employees having access to basic provisions for pensions. For it to meet the needs of those working and contributing to their retirement, whether it be in 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years from now, the plan has to adapt. And how are we adapting? We're adapting to the changing membership, we're adapting to the changing investment environment, and as well maintaining its value for all members. And adapting is how we do it right, and do it right for all members. As I noted earlier, the plan now has over 320,000 members. Some have just started to build their pensions, while others have been collecting their pensions for over 30 years. As trustees, we must govern with the best interest of all plan members in mind as MPP moves into the future. Careful, proactive, prudent financial management has helped weather many situations, and as we've seen in the most recent valuation, helped it stay valuable, sustainable, and beneficial to all of our members. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll turn it back to Gary.
Okay, next up, we have Gordon Fyfe, who is the Chief Executive Officer and Chief Investment Officer for the British Columbia Investment Management Corporation, overseeing more than $135 billion in investments. Gordon has more than 30 years in the investment and finance industry. He started with JP Morgan in New York and London, and then moved to senior executive positions at Caisse de dépôt et placement de Quebec and TEL Global Asset Management. Before joining BCIMC in 2014, he was President and Chief Executive Officer of the Public Sector Pension Investment Board. Please welcome Gordon Fyfe.
Thank you, Gary and Hilary. I know that this group only gets together once a year, so I'm very grateful that you made some time for BCIMC on the agenda. So BCIMC, British Columbia Investment Management Organization, it's quite a mouthful. The organization was created in 2000, and its mandate is to work with the representatives of our clients in the management of their assets. So obviously, the municipal pension plan is one of our clients. In fact, it's our largest client. We also manage the pension assets for the public sector pension employees, for the teachers, for college, for WorkSafe. We manage their pension fund as well as their insurance fund. BC Hydro as well. And all of this, as Gary has mentioned, puts the assets at about $140 billion of money that we're managing. And that $140 billion over the next 5 to 10 years is going to grow to about $200 billion of assets under management. Now, I've been running the fund since July of 2014, just over 3 years. Gary mentioned some of my previous experience, and I'm pleased because I didn't want anyone getting nervous thinking this guy is managing $140 billion after only 3 years. Prior to coming here 3 years ago, I did run the Public Sector Pension Investment Board for the federal government for 11 years, which is a similarly sized fund to this one. And you took the long road to say about the pension fund that I'd worked for in Quebec. It's a long word. We just call it CDP for short. And there I ran the public markets division, so all of the public stocks and equities, $80 billion of assets there. So some of that time, as you heard, was in Montreal, but I've also worked in France, studied there as well, New York and London. But I was born in Victoria, and I grew up in Victoria, and I did my undergraduate degree at UBC. So I am from British Columbia, and I've always been from British Columbia, even for the number of years that I didn't live here. And so when my predecessor in this role, Doug Pierce, who ran this organization almost since the beginning of time, decided back in 2013 to retire, I was really pleased and thrilled at the opportunity to come back home. As were my parents, who are 92 and 93 and still live in Victoria, to finally see me come back. So you've seen a slide that Hilary put up, and it must be important because I've got it twice in my presentation. And that is that every dollar, and I know there's a number of people here today that have already retired and are collecting their benefits, but this is important. So for every dollar that you're receiving, 25 cents of that dollar is the original contribution that you would have made and that your employer would have made into the fund. The other 75 cents is the cumulative returns that have been earned over the time that money was deposited with BCIMC or its predecessor when it was a part of the Ministry of Finance. So BCIMC is your investment manager. But we're also, as I said, the investment manager for all of the other BC public sector funds. Now, this is important because what we do is we combine all of those assets into one large entity. And big is better. BCIMC is the 35th largest organization like ours in the world. Now, we're not the biggest, but it's $140 billion going to 200 very soon. And that's really important because in the world of investment, large means that we have a lot more negotiating power as a large entity. We have muscle. We have economies of scale, so we can afford to build more of our activities internally rather than hiring people on the outside and paying them to do it. It actually is cheaper sometimes when we build things internally. And we also have a better ability with a large asset base to diversify across asset classes and also across geographies. The governance of BCIMC is very important. So I am hired not by the government. I am hired by a board of directors that I report to. They hire me, they evaluate me, they set my objectives and the objectives for the organization. They evaluate me, and if they don't like me, they will fire me. And that's important to understand. Now, there's 7 people on that board. 4 of the people on that board are appointed. One is by your board of trustees, Dennis Blatchford, and then each of the public sector, the teachers, and the college each appoint one. So 4 of the 7 directors come from the client board. So if you're wondering, is the fund client-oriented? Yes, because 4 of the 7 people represent the funds. The government has the right to appoint 3 of the directors. They will appoint the chairman, and then they will appoint 2 others. And up until December, one of those representatives was from the WorkSafe fund. He retired in December, and we're waiting for his replacement. And the other is from BC Hydro, the chief financial officer of BC Hydro, for whom we manage their pension funds, is also on the board. So in fact, 6 of the 7 directors are also clients of ours. And so what is our job, if I put it simply and graphically? During your working life, you make these contributions, and at the end of it all, you're going to collect your benefits. And what your actuary says, if BCIMC, if you can do your job, and over the life of that money, on average, earn 6.25% per year, then everything is going to be in balance. So all of the contributions going in and all of the payments coming out will be in balance. So that's our job. Our job is to earn, on average, not every year, but over the long run, 6.25% per year. So then you say, well, how have you done? Well, let me explain this. So there's that yellow line running right down the middle. That represents 6.25%. So that's the bogey. That's the number that we need to hit over the long run to make sure that everything stays in balance. And then there's a couple of bars, this turquoise or green or blue, whatever that light one is up on top. That's the actual return that BCIMC has earned over the period of time represented over here. This blue line is the benchmark. That's what Hilary was referring to. So how are we evaluated? What if we weren't there and the money was just invested passively into the markets as much as possible? What would the return have been? So 3 numbers. The yellow line, what do we have to make to keep everything in balance? What did we actually do? And what would have happened if we weren't there? So you look over 20 years, the average annual return of the fund. So on average, every year the fund has earned 7.5%, which is more than the 6.25% and better than the 7 of the benchmark, assuming that we weren't there and the money was invested through index funds and passively. And you say, well, that's nice, but it's only 0.5%. But that 0.5% translates into $4 billion of extra value in the fund through the investment decision that BCIMC and its partners make on those funds have generated $4 billion of additional assets in the fund. And then you can run down over 10 years, 6.5, 5 years, 10. Over 1 year, 5.9, versus 6.6, but there's a good lesson here. This is 1 year to the end of December. This is 1 year to the end of March, so only 3 months later. So look at over that period. The fund has earned 12% versus 11.3% for the benchmark. So the lesson here is, as Hilary was saying, don't look at the short term. Those numbers over the short term can bounce around a lot. So what you're really looking at is the longer term. And I'm going to use that to make a point here, because if any of you are managing some of your own money or you read the financial papers, you know that the stock markets have been very, 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 very strong the last 7, 8, almost 9 years. Great performance. And we all know that nothing goes up forever. And at some point, the markets will crack. There will be a fall. I don't know if it's going to be 10% or 20% or 30%. I can't sell $140 billion of assets in anticipation that the markets might fall tomorrow or sometime during the next 2 years, there's going to be a crack in the markets. But here's the thing for a fund like ours and a balance sheet like ours is, markets going down doesn't really hurt us unless we have to sell. So if we own a building or a company that's worth $100 million today, but then the accountants have us, well, the markets have cracked, the markets have fallen 20%, so now you have to put it on your books at $80 million. Have we lost $20 million? Has that money gone? No, the building is still there. The tenants are still there. We're still collecting. But you're going to see a report that comes out. And it says, BCIMC lost $10 billion. I'm just making up numbers or something because we're going to take all of those assets and we're going to mark them down, not because we're selling them, but the accounting rules are you have to mark them every year as if you were going to sell them. But we don't have to sell them. That's the beautiful thing about our balance sheet is we don't have to sell. We don't need cash. There's more cash coming in than going out. So when you see those reports about the fund having lost X amount of money and X percentage, you're going to see us actually smiling. And it's not because we're crazy. It's because every year we have to invest billions and billions of dollars. And I do mean billions and billions of dollars. So if the valuation of all of those assets fall 10% or 20% or 30%, and we have to put billions of dollars to work every year, it's like a fire sale. We're getting 20% off. We're getting 30% off. But it's not only that. Not every investor has a balance sheet like BCIMC. So what that means is in times of distress, like the financial crisis that we went through in 2008 and 2009, a lot of investors are forced to sell assets under distress. And guess who's there to help them out? BCIMC and other funds like ours took great advantage of other investors who had too much leverage or had bought things at too high a price. And the subsequent years' returns were significantly generated by our ability to go in during the financial crisis and to buy assets. So we're not only buying assets cheaper than we would have had to buy them, but we're also getting access to assets that would have never come for sale in ordinary markets. So again, it's for sure we're going to come into a period when stock markets and other asset markets are going to fall. Everybody's going to be complaining about it in the newspaper. Maybe some of the politicians will be attacking each other over the losses. But what we've done is mark the assets down, but we will be very, very active in the markets at that time, taking our cash and buying assets we could only dreamed of owning one day at prices that really do make us drool. So just remember that, because it's going to happen, and I can't tell you if it's tomorrow or in the next 2 years, but this will happen. So you'll see, though, from this chart that the numbers are pretty good over the long term and the near term. And the question that I get asked is, well, you're making some changes at BCIMC. You're changing a bit how you manage money. You're changing the types of assets that you're buying. Why would you do that? Look, it's all gone so very, very well. Why would you change anything? And the reality is that we're changing because the world is changing. So I have a chart here that shows you rate of return here from 1998 out until this year. And so the top blue line is if you buy a piece of real estate on average, what's the yield that you're going to get on the money that you invest in that real estate? And what you'll see is that from 98 up until recently, it's fallen from just under 7.5% to 4.5%. In fact, a lot of you are from Vancouver, I expect. And you know the Pacific Centre Mall downtown? 50% of that, it's owned by the Ontario Teachers' Pension Plans Real Estate Fund. They sold 50% of that earlier this year. They sold that for a yield of 3.5%. So imagine we're buying assets like that for your pension fund. You need to make 6.25, and we would go out and buy assets at 3.5. There's a big gap there, and it's got to be filled up. Government bonds, yielding between 5 and 6% back at the beginning. Down this morning, they're at 2.1%. You buy all those government bonds, you could say you can get rid of all of the risk in the fund, but that's not really true, because now you have a funding risk. Now your pension isn't making the 6.25%. So we can't just keep investing in bonds and in real estate the way we used to. Will equities bail us out? Well, here's Canadian equities. Back in the 80s, yielding above 13%. Today, we're looking at them saying, they're going to return around 6% over the long run. Let me put all of this another way. So if we look here at this chart, here's the asset classes along the bottom, and I'll go through them one at a time, and then here's the return. And you have 2 bars for each one. The darker bar is what that asset class was expected to return or did return in 1990, and then what we think it's going to return going forward from 2017. So let's start with bonds. Bonds were returning about 10% back at the beginning of this period. Today, as I said, they're around 2%. Canadian stocks, 11, 12%. Today, just below 6%. Global stocks, emerging markets. How many of you have seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire? Anybody seen that movie? Yeah. So the guy who wrote the book that the movie's based on, obviously he's from India, but today he's the High Commissioner to Canada from India. So he and his wife were in to see me last week, and the fact that he wrote Slumdog Millionaire has nothing to do with that, but I was impressed by it. I thought you might be as well. He was actually apologizing to me about the growth in India, because all of our long-term expectations for growth in India is between 6 and 8%. But they've been bringing in a number of measures to get rid of corruption, and so that slowed growth down temporarily to between 5 and 6%. Can you imagine the High Commissioner of a country apologizing to me because the growth is going to be closer to 5 or 6%? What we would do in this country to have a growth rate anywhere near that. And then you can see for the rest of them, real estate the same, and all the way through to infrastructure. So what we're doing is we're pushing our asset allocation with your trustees more to this end of the asset classes. But this is nothing new. So these sorts of changes have been going on for a long time. In the beginning, BCIMC invested in bonds. Starting in, I think it was 1995. I wasn't there, so let me just check. 1990. 1990 started investing in stocks. 1991, started investing in real estate. 1995 in private equity, and finally in 2005 in infrastructure. So the evolution of the asset mix at BCIMC is something that's been going on since the creation of the organization. It's nothing new. So what do some of these changes that we're making look like? Well, first let's look at the asset classes. So if we go back to 2000, 85% of the fund was invested in what we call traditional assets, which would be stocks and bonds, and only 15% in the private markets, real estate, private equity, infrastructure, mortgages. Today, that's changed to 67% in these traditional asset classes, up to 33%, and the target we have with your trustees is to get it to 59, 41. So that's the kind of change we've made in the asset classes. And how about geographical diversification? This is a big one. So if you go back to 2000, only 23% of the fund was invested outside of Canada. Remember, Canada is about 2 to 2.5% of the world's global GDP. It's a very, very small amount. Far fewer opportunities in Canada than elsewhere. Today, it's 48%, and 52% now is outside of Canada. So let me give you just a couple of quick examples, some of the investments that we're making along the lines of this strategy. Here's one. It's called Asciano. This is a company we bought with some other partners last year. $800 million Australian we invested in this. And it's a logistics, rail, and port company in Australia. So we own 12% of the rail company, 5.5% of the port company, and 11% of the logistics company. But we're a direct investor in this asset. What that means is we have board seats on each of those three companies under Asciano. It allows us to pick the management, to approve the strategy, but more importantly, to be involved in the setting of the compensation for the management. Because at the end of the day, much as we want to believe in the goodwill of people, they do what you pay them to do, not necessarily what you want them to do. So it's again true here. This is another business that we just bought this year, Pilot Freight Services. It's a logistics company. Amazon is a big user of that, so they deliver a lot of packages for Amazon. They have 14,000 customers around the world. It's a U.S.-based company. We invested $100 million into that. And we have 2 of the 7 seats on that board of directors. So again, we're very involved in the management of that business. So we're really moving from being an investor to being an asset owner and all of the responsibilities, but also the benefits that go with that. Now again, for those of you from Vancouver, this is one you'll recognize, Oak Ridge Shopping Centre. So earlier this year, we bought Oak Ridge Shopping Centre from, again, CDP, or the Caisse de Dépôt in Montreal. How many of you have been into Oak Ridge? How many of you have been into Tsawwassen Mills? Do you notice any difference in the crowds between Oak Ridge and Tsawwassen Mills? Because Caisse de Dépôt actually owned both of those. They built Tsawwassen Mills, and they also owned Oak Ridge. And if you've been in Oak Ridge lately, you've probably noticed it's a little bit dated, worn out. The problem was the case was putting so much money into developing Tsawwassen Mills, they kind of held back on the development and the refurbishment of Oak Ridge. And at the end of it all, last year, the CEO, Michael, decided they had too much investment in retail in British Columbia. So there was a number of iterations. They wanted to sell us half of this and half of that. And we insisted, because this is a first-class center. This is first-class property. It's the second most profitable mall in Canada in terms of sales per square foot. So we used our size, and we negotiated to buy the whole thing 100% outright. And we did that, and we closed earlier this year. And over the next 8 to 10 years, we'll be investing quite a bit more money in the redevelopment, not only of the shopping center, but also a number of residential and office buildings on the property, and it'll be creating quite a community there. And by our estimates, we're going to end up with all of that development and improvement. We're going to end up, and as we sell that off, we'll end up having gotten the shopping center for free because of the amount. And what was nice about this is all the planning had already been approved by the city. So when we bought that, we didn't have any of the planning risk that usually goes along with redeveloping something like this. So again, I will stop there, and I know that there's a question period at the end, but I will put this slide up one more time just to accentuate what the role of BCIMC is in your pension, both while you're working, but also when you retire. Thank you very much. Thank you again for having me, and I'll be here for questions at the end.
Okay, next we're going to do the website tour. Corina de Guire is the Director of BC Pensions Corporation's Plan and Member Contribution Branch. She has been with the corporation since 2007. Over the years, Corina has led the municipal plan through a number of significant communication initiatives, including the addition of award-winning videos on YouTube and the introduction of more member-focused communications, including the launch of our new website. Previously, she has served as strategic communication advisor to naval leaders, associate publisher of Lookout newspaper for Maritime Force Pacific, and interim managing editor of the Maple Leaf and the Department of National Defense internal communications publication. She has also taught Canadian Force Information Officer as an instructor in Defense Public Affairs. She has been on the front line of this website redesign from the conception to delivery to ongoing continuous improvements. Please welcome Corina de Guire.
Good morning. Well, I'm super excited to be here today because we've been working very hard at the new website, and we're excited to show you how it's evolved and how it can help you find news and reports, learn more about your pension plan, and do business related to your pension activity. My colleague Stephen Hoos is here today to help navigate the site, and we look forward to exploring this new site with you. The new site is all about you, the member. And for us, it's really good to know that we're making a difference in members' lives by how we're providing services through the website. Close to 800 members access the site daily, and more than 300 have already completed their retirement applications online, with many more creating and saving pension estimates and updating personal information, such as their addresses and bank account information. I have 3 important things I want to share with you today. First, the site is based on comprehensive user experiences. Research with members just like you. Second, it's completely different from the previous site because it was built with a different intent in mind. It's really there to help you get things done. And third, and this is key, it helps us better meet your needs on an ongoing basis. Supporting members like you online was the #1 priority for the Board of Trustees when we began planning the website redesign. That's why we took time to do research with members like yourself. The result is a website that addresses members' pensions journey, whether they're active members or retired members. The site is all about making the complex easy and helping you get things done. The new site also gives us more insight about members' use, and it's the foundation that prepares us to improve the site based on how you, the member, will use it on an ongoing basis. So it won't be a static thing. It will continue to evolve based on the interactions that we have with you on the site itself. This is one of the ways that we are always working on behalf of the trustees. So let's take a look at the real thing so that you can see it for yourself. So here we are at the homepage of the website. I get a sense of how many people have actually looked at the website in the last 4 months. Okay, that's good. So first of all, you'll notice it's all about what you want to get done rather than the type of membership. We want to make it easy and fast for you to get what you want, and so we ask up front, what can we help you with? You'll also find quick access to news and reports and current information, such as this annual general meeting, as you scroll through the homepage. The site is organized into 4 main areas. Your pension, where you'll find the majority of information related to topics that often require a decision or some sense of understanding. These pages guide you through understanding your choices and making changes if you wish to. Learning articles are one of my favorite sections of the website, and because they dig a little deeper into some of the complex topics like taking time off work and the implications to your pension plan, how to protect your family, understanding your healthcare options in retirement, and ways to save money in healthcare. We're going to add to these sections on an ongoing basis, so I'd really encourage you to come back and check and see what's there. The site won't be static, so it's an opportunity to come back and check in. Back up at the top of the page, you'll notice the About Us section. This is where you're going to find information about plan governance, including the bios of your trustees, the plan rules, governance documents, and advocacy and education materials like quick facts about the plan or economic impacts, or even videos you can share with others. At the top of the last of the 4 areas, the A to Z index is a glossary of pension terms there for your reference. I'd like to draw your attention at the top of the page to the My Account button, right beside the search icon. Here you can securely access your personal pension information, and we're going to walk you through that in a moment. While we're at the top of the home page, though, let's test out this search function. We heard loud and clear from members that they really value useful search function, and the truth is, so do we. It makes everyone's job a little bit easier. I'm pleased to show you how easy it is to search here. Click on the magnifying glass, as Stephen did, and here you'll see he typed in the term payment. Stephen, click on the link to pension payment dates. Here you will find the dates your pension payments are deposited or mailed, as well as the US dollar exchange rates. Notice that on the right side of this page, you now have a collection of information related to your search term. Because of the way content is organized, right from this page, you can go to other pages related to that search term, that pension payment term, such as monthly pension payments and cost of living adjustment history as well. This is one of the biggest benefits of the new site. We frequently heard members say to us that I don't know what I don't know, or I don't know what to look for. And by gathering up content like this, it will help you to find content you might not have known to otherwise look for, but is related to the piece that you did look for. The other thing I want to point out is the related content box. In this box, because you search for payment, you'll find a link to information like how to update your bank account information or apply for direct deposit to a US bank account. Clicking on one of these will take you directly to that information without having to search again. The collection of related content will happen on all pages of the site, so regardless of the topic, it'll collect related content along the way. So now let's look at your pension area in a bit more depth. One of the featured items here is planning for retirement. So the ultimate goal of having a pension, of course, is retiring, so let's take a look at that. Here you'll see we've hit the jackpot of information to help members plan for their retirement. The information is organized in short, easy-to-scan descriptions, and it will help you decide what you specifically are interested in along the way. In this case, Stephen, let's take a look at Choose Your Pension option. Again, I'd like to point out that on the right side, you have access to all those items that were on the previous page or the previous list, so that you don't have to use the back button, and it's all right here, curated for you. Pension options are complex, and this content is here to help members make important decisions and understand the complexities before they make the decisions. As an example, you'll see that you can learn more about single life versus joint life. For those of you who want to reference this page later, notice at the bottom of the page, you have a printer-friendly icon. But if you're want to take an environmentally conscious approach, you can certainly bookmark this and go back to it at a later date. So now let's take a look at the About Us section. When we look at this page and scroll down just slightly to the right, there's the Pension Percolator. This is a blog where you can learn more about the pension industry developments and news about your plan. In the future, you'll be able to subscribe to the blog, so you'll be able to find out what news goes up on a regular basis. In the meantime, I would encourage you to come back monthly and learn more about what your plan is doing in this area. In this case, this blog is about advocating for lower drug prices, and to the right are all of the previous topics, just in case you're curious, so you can see there's things on governance, surveys, retirement income security, etc. If we now go to reports, you can see all of the annual reports are in this section, which provide, of course, the annual report provides detailed information on the financials and membership information about the plan. You'll see here that the past 5 years of reports are readily available in case you want to go back and check. I'd also like to point out there are two ways it's easy to get back to the About Us section. You can click back on the large green boxes at the top, or you can navigate through what we call the breadcrumbs for the current page. Let's take a look at research and advocacy. This is a great spot to find information for yourself or to share with others. In the letters and submissions section, you can read letters from your board of trustees, such as this one on responsible investing. Now let's visit tools and resources. This is a great place to get more resources to share with others, maybe connect them through Facebook with younger members, or use them when you talk to other plan participants. One of these is a quick one-pager with top 10 tips about the value of your pension plan. And you'll also find here the retirement roadshow videos, which remain popular. Now let's go back and take a look at the My Account, your personal private area of the website. Notice that you can get there from any part of the website. It's on the top of every single page. We'll now go through some things that you can do when you sign in. Before we continue, I just want to emphasize that My Account is your personal private space. It's safe and secure, and it's a way where you can view and make changes to your personal information. And it's also a secure way to send messages to the plan itself. We're thrilled to offer these enhanced secure services to you along with other elements of the new website. Stephen is just about to sign in here. Don't be distracted that he actually went to another tab. We're on a test site. So we just wanted to make sure that you were aware you could get there right from the original tab. All you need to do to register is your personal identifier. You can find that on your annual member benefit statement if you're currently working, or you can find that on your pension statement if you're retired. In this example, you'll see 3 check marks for the individual site that we're looking at, showing when their personal information was last updated. This is also where any messages would appear about tasks that you might need to complete. Most exciting is that active members can now retire online through My Account. As I noted earlier, 300 members have already completed their online retirement applications. Once an active member has established their pension effective date, the date they want to stop working and retire, they can enter it on the My Account dashboard. And if eligible, they can start their application to retire online. In this case, you can see that the application has started, so Stephen is going to click to continue the application. It's important to note that you can set the pension effective date at any time, even years before retirement. However, you'll only be able to start the application online when you're within 90 days of that pension effective date. Along the top, you'll see a timeline. These are the steps in the process. You confirm your personal information, confirm your spousal information, choose your pension options, name retirement beneficiaries, select health and dental or waive it, add your banking information, review, and submit. We're not going to walk through all the steps today, but you would see that it's easy to follow and you'll know where you are each step of the way. You can stop at any point and save and come back into the process to complete it. You don't have to do it all in one step. And it often shows you these are the pieces of information that you will need in order to complete this step. So it's a guided tour through the whole piece. What's really great is that there's also related content that goes back to the main part of the website. So if you're choosing a pension option as an example, you can go back and read all of that content so that you can figure out what the best choices are and better understand those decisions. Online services are really helping members engage with the plan from the day they join the plan throughout their retirement. We really believe that as you interact with the new website and its features, you'll appreciate the value of checking out My Account whenever you want to, whether you're active or retired. The site is there 24/7, and often work can be done faster online than it can be done in other ways. Remember that the site is all about making the complex easy, and it's there to help you get things done. You can access your pension information you need anytime, and you can interact with us on your schedule. I really want to encourage you to check it out on your own and not make it a one-time thing, but make it a habit to come back on occasion and see what new information is available to you. It's worth checking back because it's going to evolve and because there are more interactive sections throughout the site. It'll help you understand your plan better, and that'll help you make good decisions along your path. I just want to thank you, Stephen, for helping me along there. And Pension Corporation staff will be out in the lobby if you have any personal questions or individual questions about your own pension information. And I'm going to hand it back to Gary.
Okay. I'd like to close out our presentation with a brief view of what's ahead for the municipal pension plan. As I said at the beginning, the plan is valuable, sustainable, and beneficial. You can be assured that this will continue. The board is very seriously and deliberately considers the financial health of the plan and its fairness to all members at each meeting, but specifically what's ahead. The board is always developing and adapting to changing circumstances. At this year, we spent time on strategic planning to ensure that we carry out our fiduciary duties in the best possible way. Each committee reviews its responsibilities and identifies strengths, opportunities, and challenges in their particular areas of oversight. This feeds into the overall board's planning. The 2017 to 2027 strategic decision framework is available on our website. We also started an asset liability study. In 2012, the board revised the policy asset mix. This means we shifted the specific segments where we invest and how much money we invest in each segment. In particular, we shifted gradually to a greater emphasis on real estate. Real estate like land, building, regulated utilities, and renewable resources are tangible physical investments suited to the long-term investment objectives of the plan. The current study will help us decide whether our allocation needs to be adjusted for the long-term health and sustainability of the plan. Coming up, we also got a review of the plan's group benefits program for retired members, including the dental plan. The plan's group benefit for retired members consists of subsidies for MSP premium based on years of service, subsidies for extended health care premiums, also based on years of service, and access to an unsubsidized dental program, which includes options for essential or enhanced coverage. As you know, we've made necessary changes to the program effective January 1st, 2017. When we announced the change, we've also promised to review the dental program within 2 years. The purpose is to review the group benefit plan design and financing to make sure it is sustainable, the value of the program to members, including access, coverage, service, and tools. We want to make sure we carefully and thoroughly review the program, so we've planned to engage an employees benefits consultant. From there, the steps include scoping out the project, conducting the program evaluation, consulting with members, reviewing the result and making a decision, then communicating and implementing the changes. We have to plan out the entire project and conduct the evaluation, but an essential part of that review will be our consultation with members. We're going to seek yours and all members' input on both the plan design and your experience with the plan carrier, Pacific Blue Cross. Watch for the news from us as we define the form of consultation we will take. We'll encourage you to share your experience. Farther in the future, the next actuarial evaluation will be set at December 31st, 2018. This is an important tool for the board to access and ensure the plan's health and sustainability. So that concludes our presentation as we move into the question and answer session. We're going to now begin with the question and answer session, so maybe we can invite our guests up to the front here. We will get to as many questions as we can. I want to assure you that if we need to go beyond our scheduled closing time of noon, we have some flexibility to continue with your questions. Just a reminder, you get one question at a time, and we appreciate it if you can ask your question in just 1 minute. Got a little clock up here to time you. Once everyone has had a chance with their first questions, we'll move to round 2 and then 3. Please also identify yourself at the mics. So on stage with me, we have our Vice Chair, Hilary Brown. Sitting next to Hilary is Gordon Fyfe, the CEO of BCIMC. Beside him is our Executive Director, Judy Payne. And then we have Richard Border, our Plan Actuary, and Aaron Walker-Duncan, the Vice President of Board Service from BC Pension Corp. And at the end there, we have Monique Klein from PBC. So let's begin. Microphone number 2.
Good morning. Stephen Polak, the President of the Municipal Pension Retirees Association, the MPRA. I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate Gordon Fyfe on the foresight to bring BCIMC into the 21st century with his advancements and recommendations to the board on how investments should be in the future and bringing many of the investments in-house so that at the end of the day there will be more money for the plan and less money going into the pockets of outside managers. I just wanted to correct a couple of things that he said. The diversification started in 1994 after MEPC, where I chaired. We negotiated diversification, and the real estate and the bonds were already in investments. And from that day forward through Doug Pierce into today, I think that it's shown that it was a wise move by the MEPC to negotiate that. And along with that, we also got I hear that we got the group health benefits as part of the package for diversifying our pension plan. And I just want to say merci beaucoup on behalf of retirees.
Thank you, Stephen. Microphone number 1.
Hi, Gary. Hello, board. My name is Eric Jaworski, QP728. I'm also a member of the QPBC Pension Committee. The mic says speak clearly, so I guess I'm already in trouble. But as the money person told us, the stock market is hitting new highs almost every day. There is at least one person taking credit for it. The question I have for you under the SIP, can you buy puts? And if the answer is yes, are you doing so? Thank you.
I'll repeat the question. The gentleman asked if we could buy puts, which are an option. So you buy a put, it's like an insurance. You pay a premium to get some protection. So if the stock market falls, you could recoup, you would get paid some money. The organization, along the lines of what Steve, and thank you very much for your comments, Steve, and I have some complimentary comments, not necessarily for you, but for the plans in general, but let me address this first. Historically, BCIMC has not used any derivative products at all, futures, options, puts, calls, none of that, with the exception of on a foreign exchange. So we would use them in foreign exchange because that was the only way you could transact in foreign exchange. And I'm sorry this is, I'm going to make it a technical answer just to make it quick. But to actually use a lot of the products that you're referring to, it takes a lot of systems and safeguards and education within the team and the accounting department. And none of that existed historically. We are looking at it and we are building up to be able to do that in the future. But I will not allow the organization to do anything until we have the systems and the processes in place to allow us to do it, not just do it, but to do it well and not to have some mistakes or mispricings or anything. Okay? Now, my compliment was on the plan, this is a joint trust, which means the liabilities are shared 50-50. So that's a lot of foresight when this was set up. And I get asked to speak quite often in different forums. And I don't get asked to come and talk about the economies necessarily or what we're doing in the plan. People want to know at other pension funds, how is it that this joint trust works? Because I can walk into one of the pension board client meetings, and I can't tell who's a government representative and who's an employee representative. It doesn't mean that when the doors are closed that it doesn't show, but it's through that sort of cooperation that we've ended up, and we can look at the plans today, and all of them are funded, fully funded. All of them are in small surplus, some of them in larger surplus. I think the largest is around 120 or 124% fully funded. And that's what, if you're down in the U.S., the funding is, 60 or 70%. So particularly in BC and the other similar structured plans across Canada, are quite world famous for some of the decisions that were made jointly by the employees and by the employer quite some time ago. So Steve, that's where I would put a lot of the credit for the financial performance that's in place today.
I got a whole stack here. I was going to alternate between, if you don't mind. So I have a question here. It says, now that the MSP premium has been reduced effective January 1st, 2018, and further into the future, will this reduction be applied to the current subsidy to plan members? So at this point, the board has not had an opportunity to review the changes. It will be part of the benefit review. Then we'll go to mic number 2 for the next question.
Thank you. My name is Susan Tay. I am a retiree of 1 month standing. My question pertains to interest rate risk. According to the chief economist of the Bank of England, Anthony Haldane, we now experience, endure, or enjoy, as the case may be, the lowest interest rates in 5,000 years of recorded history. Interest rates do figure in projections of the MPP. If the current exceptionally low interest rates are maintained for the long term, can the MPP remain solvent?
Gord? Or maybe that one's a good one for Richard to.
Take it. It's an actuarial question and an investment one. Clearly, when we're doing the valuation, what we're doing is taking a view as to what can be earned over the long term. So we're looking at 30, 40, 50 years out, and we're establishing if we earn those rates, how much money needs to come into the plan to make benefits. The discount rate that we use at the moment takes into account the fact that interest rates are low, but there's a general expectation that they're going to rise at some point in the future. If they were to stay low indefinitely, then we would, over time, every time that we do evaluation, we reestablish what should that discount rate be. You would have seen over the last 5 valuations, we brought the discount rate down, and we would potentially need to bring it down again. But I think that the 6.25% that we have already does anticipate that interest rates are low and they're going to stay low for quite a long period of time.
From an investment point of view, during my presentation, you saw that we are moving away from just bonds, and we're putting the allocation into other asset classes, and we will continue to do that. One of the areas that we're looking at is if you're invested in government bonds, then you're going to suffer the consequences that you describe over a very long period of time, because I don't think interest rates are going to shoot up tomorrow. It's taken, I think the decline started back in 1980, and we're today 2017, so the rise in rates will play out over a very long period of time. But rising interest rates tend to apply a stronger economy. Stronger economy is good for business. It's good for companies. If you have a stronger economy, you have more sales. It's also good for credit, because if you're lending money to a company, you've got 2 things happening. One is interest rates are going up, so the price of the bond would be going down. But on the other hand, if you've lent the money, it's not only about interest rates, it's also about the credit standing of that company. And as the economy gets stronger, and is reflected by interest rates going up, the credit spreads actually come down because the company's doing more business, it's more successful, and it's more able to pay you back your interest and eventually your principal. So some of the things that we've done, as I said, we're moving into other asset classes. We're getting more agile at moving the money into different areas and to different geographies as well. Because you can go into countries like India where interest rates are still fairly high and will probably fall for quite some time, and we want to have the ability to allocate more into some of those economies. But we did launch about a year and a half ago a high-yield credit fund, which was very well taken up by our clients. And we're currently working on developing a private credit product. So again, offering more credit than we have in the past, because credit would actually be counter to what's happening to interest rates.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I got another question here first. Will the MPP consider additional voluntary contributions like the program offered by OMERS? We finished our strategic planning already for this year, and it's not one of the short-term priorities this round. So we have a person on the mic at the front here.
Hello, my name is Margaret Byrne, and I spent 50 years working in hospitals, and my pension came up very quickly and very well, so I didn't really pay attention to any of the paperwork. Now, the problem is, I recently sent some prescriptions to Blue Cross. They came back with a sheet of paper saying I had made $2,600 in payment, and they sent me $600. So I went back and started to read. I got the impression that the municipal pension plan had done something with Blue Cross to drop our the amount of money we would get back. I wonder if somebody could explain that, because I think as you get older, you need more help, not less help. And this came as quite a shock to me to get a $600 check. So has the municipal pension plan downgraded our Blue Cross payments?
Maybe we could do tag team.
Judy?
So there were changes announced to the extended healthcare program that went into effect January 1st, 2017. The plan did move to a managed drug formulary, and there was a change to the degree of coinsurance that was offered by the plan as well. However, I think there have been perhaps some other changes at pharmacare and so forth that we've seen that members have experienced as well in the last 8 months or so. Maybe let Monique comment further.
Yeah, sure. So I'm here with a team of individuals here today, and Reva Pickering is from our Pharmacy Services Department, could probably answer the question in a little bit more detail, but we can also take the question offline with regard to your particular claims, because certain pharmaceuticals are going to be covered at different rates than others, depending on the plan design and on the formulary, and we may need to find a little bit more information about that in order to answer the question sufficiently. Would you mind seeing us at the table afterwards? Yeah, certainly.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. I got another question here first. This one's going to go to Aaron. Yeah, so how secure is our info on website? Can hackers access our bank account info?
The short answer is no. As you heard earlier from Corina during her demonstration of the website, we have a specific section, a secure section of this site where you have to access to get access to your information. I guess we spend a lot of time and energy at the Pension Corporation seeking to protect your information, because fundamentally the data and the information about you and the 500,000 other British Columbians we hold, and we take that very, very seriously. It is secure, protected by, I won't get into all the technical speak because I don't know that language, but a lot of layers of security. Corina, do you want to add anything?
Just add that we test it on a regular basis, so we're always testing. Data and security is very, very important to our organization. We have a team of people whose job it is to ensure that that data is secure, and it's been an interesting process to just see how the testing works, and that happens whether it's a staff member like ourselves and how we get an email, or whether or not they're actually getting into the system. So that, as Aaron said, there are multiple layers, but I'd just like to reassure you that we're testing it and looking for ways ourselves to hack in, including hiring people to help to do that, so that we know that it's actually secure. So we're not just saying that, we're testing it ourselves.
Okay, microphone number 2.
My name is Brian McConville. I've been retired for 12 years. I'm a retired member of the Municipal plan. I told myself I wasn't going to ask the question this year, but I couldn't help myself. Anyway, I've one question, but I have a very short one for Mr. Fyfe as well. Okay, the two people that just answered the question, my question is, with the new website, can we have an application form on the website for the MPRA that would be linked to retirees' questions when they retire? That's the first question. The second is for Mr. Fyfe. Do you believe in the nudge theory?
Do I believe in the nudge theory? I think I just met the author of that book. Or did I just... No, he just won
the Nobel Prize.
The Nobel Prize last week. Do I believe in the nudge theory? Yeah. I think I think we all studied it, and maybe you'd like to define it for everyone.
Well,
because not everyone will know what it is.
Well, if you believe, okay.
It's human behavior, so I do believe that it has an impact, and I do believe in that, yeah.
Well, I'll try, but it's a social investing, and they call it the nudge theory because people watch a stock and they think it's going to go up or down, and that's their first reaction because they're nudged in that direction, but then they have to sit back and do more studies to see if that was a good decision to make.
The nudge theory doesn't only apply to economics, though. It actually applies in washrooms. And so I don't want you to think that the nudge theory is only about economics. And one of the tests that they did, if any of the men have been in a washroom, there is in the porcelain often a little fly painted right into the receptacle. And what they found is that the cleanup reduced by 80%, because men have this habit, I guess, to shoot things. And so they aim for the fly. And so they found that that was very effective. So do I believe in the nudge theory? Yes, but it doesn't apply only to economics. It applies in all aspects of life, and it has been proven to be effective. So yes, sir, I do.
Thank you. The question about the website?
Yeah, so in terms of the website, it's not included in there now, but we could look into it if you like, and you can send in a request to the Secretariat office, and we can have our committees look at it.
I would like.
Okay, thank you. Judy?
Yeah, I was just going to actually ask Aaron to add something, because I do think there's some planning in the works for the plan member website in terms of chat capability long term.
Well, yeah, separate and apart from any MPRA application, but yes, we are looking at further developing our member service center, so how we are able to interact with our membership, both online and either face-to-face or by telephone, but also through the website. And so we will be introducing a click to call or click to chat functionality shortly. So, for example, and many of you may have used it in other areas where you can, while you're on the website, go on. Oh, I've got a question, and you can click on and you can interact with one of our representatives. So we're working on that. It's coming, and that's something that I think will be a benefit to members as well.
Going back to my card here. This one's actually probably going to go to Richard Border. What is the ratio of retirees to current workers / contribution now, and what is the ratio projected to be in 10 to 15 years?
So the ratio right now, I think, is close to 2 to 1. So there's 2.2. Okay, that's the exact number. And so in terms of where it's going to go, if we do projections, it's going to move towards something that looks much closer to 1 to 1. So over the next 15, 20, 25 years, we're going to see the pensioner body is going to be as large as the actives. It's difficult when you project that far out exactly how it's going to work, because it depends on what size the active plan, how the plan grows. But that would be our best view at this point.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
Microphone 1. Ed Pecos, one of the original trustees of the board, proud member. My question was one that Brian had, was regarding the website, so that's looked after. But my other question is regarding the federal government. On their order papers right now, they have Bill C-27 on there that deals with targeted pension plans. And I think the provincial government has sort of signed on to that. And knowing how well our pension plan runs as a defined benefit plan, has the board gone on record and written the finance minister of this country to ask him to dispose of that bill and get it off the order paper?
No. Not yet. We're still looking at it. It affects the federal regulated things. We have to look at it.
Yeah, look at it, but because I know Richard Taylor, he was a big proponent of how well our plan has been organized and run as a defined benefit plan, and this targeted benefit pension plan system eliminates that, and it gives employers a chance to pull a pin on the pension plans across the country. So I think we should go on record to oppose that bill.
Great.
So we're just going to add that there are target benefit plans that are currently being regulated in BC right now. While the board has not written to the federal government, one of the things they do as part of their advocacy program is talk about the value of the BC model and what a successful defined benefit plan looks like in our context. And we partner with other like-minded organizations through Canadian Public Pension Leadership Council and others to add our voice to that discussion, with the idea of raising coverage up for all Canadians rather than tearing it down to the lowest common denominator.
Great, thanks, Judy. So that kind of leads into this next question I have on the card. Are you feeling any pressure to convert our DB plan to a target or contribution? I think it means defined contribution plan. Please define these three for the audience. So I'm going to give it my best shot here. Okay. So a defined benefit plan, like our municipal pension plan, is one where employer and employee contributions go into the plan grows, and then on your date of retirement, you're given a pension based on a formula. Usually the formula is based on years of service, there's an accrual rate, and your highest average salary, in our case, 5 years. Okay? A targeted plan is kind of like a high between, well, let's talk about the defined contribution plan. Defined contribution plan is that you and your employer both have your contributions defined, and it goes into a fund, and then you pick and choose the investments you're offered, and then on retirement, you end up buying an annuity with however much money you have in that plan. The difference then between a DB plan and a DC plan is that on a DB plan, your pension is basically guaranteed, whereas a DC plan, you absorb all the risk. Okay? So a targeted benefit plan is one that's in between both a DB and TC. So there is a target benefit in which you get, and depending on how investments do over the lifetime, when you retire, you should be able to get the benefits. But if over the years when they do their valuation on the target benefit plan doesn't meet the funding for the benefit that it's promised, those benefits can be reduced. Microphone number 2.
Patrick Slater. I've been retired about 4 years. My original question was to be about the expected rate of return and the discount rate being used to calculate present value of future obligations, but I guess that's been answered at 6.25% in both cases. In a world of 2% 10-year bonds, less than 2%, in a world of even long-term bonds being scarcely 3%, it would strike me that 6.25% is dangerously high. Warren Buffett's favorite calculation of market valuation is gross market cap divided by non-financial gross value added. It's a very arcane term, I know, but we'll trust Warren Buffett. On that value and other similar values, this is the second most overvalued market in history. So, and then lastly, John Hussman, another famous US investor, has done rigorous calculations to show that the price we pay and the price being demanded of us by the market today will dictate rates of return. And he has shown that there's a 0.9% correlation between paying the PE multiple and the price to sales multiple of today's market and the subsequent 10 to 12-year returns. And those returns are calculated at between plus 2% and minus 5% for the next 10 to 12 years. And that's supported by a multiplicity of authors. So I'm just wondering about your comfort zone around 6.25% in a world where we look doomed to go to much lower rates of return. Especially, yes, interest rates rising help the economy to some degree, but we're not just investing in the economy here, we're invested in overpriced assets driven by low interest rates.
Richard, can you?
So each time we do a valuation, we spend a lot of time looking at the point that we're doing it, what we think we can get on the assets. And as I said, we are looking at a very long-term view of things. So, when we do a valuation, at the last valuation, we brought the discount rate down. So our view was that returns were not going to be as good as we as our view had been 3 years before that. And part of it is reflecting the low interest rates. If you were to go and look at what do we think we're going to earn over 2 or 3 years compared to what we think we're going to earn over 30 years, we'd have a more negative view in the short term. So we're trying to take into account the kind of things that you're talking about, trying not to be influenced too significantly by the short-term view of the market. So there's two different things to your question. I think there's one which is, are we sitting in some form of asset bubble right now? Are assets overpriced? It sounds as if you're suggesting that there are people who would say that they are. If you're looking at long-term returns and you build it up and you say, what do you think inflation is going to be? What do you think economies are going to grow at? Where do you think rates, discount rates, bond yields need to be? You basically get to a position where that 6.25 is a good estimate of what we can get in the long term. And in fact, the 6.25 is a number which is slightly lower than we think we're going to get in the long term, so that we believe that we have some margin in there in case returns in the long term are not as good as we think.
Only time will tell, of course.
Absolutely.
You probably want me to say a few things too, right? Yeah. it's not as, the world isn't all synchronized. There's not only one asset class. Not everything goes up and down together. So some of your question, absolutely. But as I said, there's structural changes taking place in India today. Structural changes that are dynamic, and there's a huge part of the population that are, I mean, not in poverty, they're basically at zero, have absolutely nothing. And over the next couple decades, as you create opportunities and you bring those people into the consuming classes, that has a huge potential as an investor. It's also great human. It's a great human benefit. But from your point of view, it also offers great opportunities. The other thing is, if you buy a stock in the stock market, there's really nothing you can do. You don't have a lot of influence over that. But good management teams and good businesses can prosper in any conditions. They may, hit a road bump and see sales slow down, but if you have a good management team, they're going to find their way through that. They're going to change their strategy, they're going to adapt, and they're going to succeed. And we've seen that a number of very, very successful companies. And one of the things that we're doing, as I showed you, is we're moving away from just passively investing in the equity markets, and we're doing a lot more by buying businesses directly. We're diversifying our assets globally around the world, so we have more opportunities. Brazil, India, for example, and Africa in the next 10, 15 years, there's going to be huge opportunities there as well. So when we look at it, and when you read some depressing reports like the one you've just referred to, yeah, you can get into a real funk, but you have to realize that there are huge opportunities in the world, and things are changing everywhere. The other thing is fees. We pay a lot of fees to other people to manage our money for us. It's about 3.5 to 7 times more expensive to have the money managed externally than it is to have it managed internally. Now, maybe when you're earning 15% a year, you don't care if somebody's charging you 2, 3, 4% a year to manage your money. But when you're starting to look at 6.25%, 6.5%, 7%, somebody who wants his 2, 3, 4%, suddenly you got to pay attention to that, and you got to try to do something about that. And so that's why we are building the organization the last 3 years and over the next few years to bring in more of those investment decisions in-house. Because, we pay our people well because we want to hire high-quality people. We don't want to hire second-class people to look after your money. It's significantly less than we're paying our external managers. If you ever come to Victoria and you're flying in, there's 2 airports there. There's the public airport, which we all use, and there's a private airport. Take a look at the private airport next time you're flying in. There's usually a private jet there. And the probability is that that private jet is one of our external managers that we're paying high fees to, flew in his private jet to come and see us. So what we're trying to do is to change the way we manage the money, to bring more of those decisions in-house. We've done it here in Vancouver. We've created a real estate company to bring in all of our real estate assets. We're $20 billion in real estate, and we were paying other people to look after that for us. At $20 billion, we're big enough where we can build the team and do it ourselves. So the profit margin, which we're estimating between $35 and $50 million a year, because we used to sit on the boards of some of our external managers, that profit margin, which used to go to the shareholders of those external managers, is now flowing back into your pension fund. So it's not only about the returns, because at the end of the day, you spend the return less whatever the cost is. So we're also focusing on trying to reduce those costs.
Thank you.
Okay, I got 3 questions here. They're kind of the same. So I'm going to read all 3 and provide you an answer. So the first one is, my eye medication is no longer covered under the retiree plan with Blue Cross. This medication is vital and no alternative is available. What can you do to ensure that when we purchase our medical, it will actually cover the drugs and services we need? The second one, I'll give you an answer to all these once I read all the questions out. The second one is, I am retired now into my 3rd year, and the drug part of our insurance, Blue Cross, is getting less and less. When you retire, you need more, not less, coverage. Is this going to continue? Does the MPP have better alternatives or changes in mind? And then the last one is, you've reported that 73% of MPP members are women who generally earn less than men, and that many members have quite low income. How are MPP staff and board working to increase women and low-income members' retirement incomes? With regards to the benefits and stuff, we're in the process of conducting a benefit review. So we haven't established what the scope of that review is. So these questions will be considered in terms of, we'll be asking you for input, and also your concerns will be submitted to the committee then for review, part of that review. Microphone number 2.
Hi, my name is Bruce Scott. I'm a union rep for the WVMEA. My question or concern is we've all heard stories about American workers at the end of their working careers. We've read in the news that they've had their pensions stripped or severely reduced. Some of those examples would be Michigan State and who fell under severe economic times, and also a big airline company that filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and these people lost half of their pension assets. I don't have a sophisticated understanding of Canadian pension law, but could somebody speak to this and tell us if the Canadian laws are different and how they're different, and if this plan, the MPP, is protected, has more protections than what's in place in the States?
Judy?
Thank you. So that's a common concern, I think, for a lot of working Canadians, because you do hear a lot about local, state, and government plans in the U.S. that are failing. There's been a lot of research that's been done, and majority of those issues are funding issues. So those plans have not been adequately funded. Employers took contribution rate holidays. They didn't use reasonable discount rate assumptions in terms of the returns that they expected to get on their investments. So the plans themselves were just not adequately funded. Your plan is more than fully funded at this point. You're in a fundamentally different place from some of those plans that are funded at 60 or 70% or even less in some cases.
So it doesn't necessarily fall under pension law in the country. It has more to do with the funding and how it's administered.
Yeah, I would say it's primarily been the approach that the plans have used. Having said that, pensions are regulated at the provincial level as well as at the federal level, and most of the regulators have moved towards a risk-based regulatory framework. So they are looking at the funded position of the plans within their jurisdiction, and they are looking at the reasonableness of the assumptions that you're using.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, microphone number 1.
Just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work on the behalf of all the members. Sorry, I'm Betty McGee. I've been retired for 4 years. I'm hoping, though, that at the next AGM we're in a different venue, because this one looks like a disaster waiting to happen. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Betty. We'll take that into consideration. Okay, seeing none, no more questions. This concludes our 2017 Annual General Meeting. I'd like to remind everybody to please fill out the event survey form and submit it in the ballot boxes outside the doors. And if you have any personal questions, to fill those out as well and leave those in the boxes as well. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you to all the service providers for attending today.